guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here to talk about an episode of a superhero animated series. Today I'll be talking about the new Batman Adventures episode, Growing Pains. If you haven't seen the episode, be sure to do so before you proceed with this video. Or if you don't mind spoilers, then keep watching while I quickly sum up the plot of the episode before I get into the meat of the review. Robin sees some girl who looks like she came right out of Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away being terrorized by bikers. He saves her, she runs. He can't get her out of his mind while Gordon tells Batman about some super strong guy robbing banks. We find out that this guy is actually Clayface, and the girl is actually part of Clayface too. Bum bum bum. Robin fights to keep the girl separate from Clayface, but Clayface absorbs her when she tries to save Robin's life. Sad endings for everybody. Cue credits. So even though Robin has been in episodes like Cold Comfort and Never Fear, this is really the first Robin-centric episode since Sins of the Father. And I don't think he's the worst thing in the world in this episode, but I also don't really like him either. He's still more Jason Todd than Tim Drake, which can be seen by how Tim tries to straight up murder Clayface at the end of this episode, even when Batman is trying to stop him. I get that the show wants him to be the headstrong, cocky kid who thinks that he's the bee's knees, but he's in way over his head like all of the time. And this can be very effective when we compare him to Dick, who, when we saw him, was always pretty cautious. But all of these qualities that describe Tim are exactly what make him an unlikable character. When Alfred tells Tim that Bruce instructed him to go straight home, and Tim essentially says, "Too bad," I just want to reach through the screen and punch him until he grows some common sense. But like I said, he's not as bad here as he was in some of his previous appearances, which I guess is as close to a victory as I can manage. So the thing with Annie being a part of Clayface, that would have worked a lot better if we hadn't already seen Clayface since his introduction. At the end of the two-part Feet of Clay episode, we see him dissolving in the water. This episode flashes back to that and tells us that some chemicals in the water revived him, but he had amnesia, so he created a golem to scout the area to see if it was safe. This works okay as the premise for an episode, except that we saw Clayface transforming into small children in Holiday Nights, and he didn't really seem like he was looking for Annie in that episode. So what was going on? Does Holiday Nights take place after this episode? I guess that would make a lot more sense than what we get here, but we're not told, so I can't be certain. Not to mention, I'm a little fuzzy on why Annie is running from Clayface. He creates her to go see if it's safe outside, so she runs away. She tells Robin that she's always being chased by this guy, but the only reason that he's chasing her is because she didn't come back. Why did she not come back? I get that this episode is playing with the themes that you often see in stories about artificial intelligence, where the thing may or may not be a sentient living entity that deserves rights just like everybody else, and if Clayface absorbs her, she'll cease to exist. I get that. But Annie doesn't know that. Annie doesn't seem to know anything about this guy who is chasing her, so why is she running from him in the first place? She seems to have amnesia when Robin first meets her, which begs the question of why did Clayface even send an amnesiac golem to scout the area to begin with? This episode feels like they wanted to explore the themes of what makes a person, but in order to do so, they had to pile up all of these plot problems that make it much more difficult to enjoy the episode. And I should say, if it was just one of the things I mentioned, like Clayface appearing in Holiday Nights, but then the rest of the episode was pretty airtight, then I wouldn't be writing this episode so hard. But it's like this episode could only exist if it had all of these weird contrivances to prop it up, and that makes it much more difficult for me to give it a pass. Overall, I am just kind of meh on this episode. I didn't hate it like I did Cold Comfort or Fire from Olympus, but I didn't really latch on to anything in this episode either. It had a neat idea at its core, but we've seen that idea explored in other places and explored much better. So those are my thoughts on this episode. What did you guys think of the episode and of my review? If you liked it, you're in luck, because I usually do reviews of this series every Saturday. But next Saturday, I'll be talking about the Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero movie. So be sure to check it out and come back the following week when I'll be returning to this series. And I also do other videos throughout the week, so be sure to check those out as well. And if you did like this video, I encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in the future. Have a great rest of the day.